Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is a video production from 5 Group. Today, I invite you to reflect on one of the most profound and universally relevant themes: human rights at the international level. What are human rights? Human rights represent the core values of dignity, freedom, and equality, which are inherent to every individual, regardless of nationality, race, religion, or social status. However, as history has shown us, these rights are not always guaranteed, and their infringement often leads to unimaginable suffering. After the terror of World War II, the concept of universal human rights gained significant status globally. The international community recognizes the urgent need to establish a framework to protect individuals and prevent such atrocities from happening again. This understanding gave birth to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which is a cornerstone of modern international law and the guiding force for global justice struggles. But why is this important to us today? In an increasingly interconnected world filled with conflict, inequality, and discrimination, human rights remind us of our common humanity. They challenge us to transcend differences and work together to ensure dignity and freedom for all. Human rights are the fundamental entitlements of every person simply by virtue of being human. These rights are universal, applying to everyone regardless of nationality, religion, gender, or background, and they can be divided into two main categories. First, civil and political rights. These include the right to life, freedom of expression, fair trials, and freedom from torture. Second, economic, social, and cultural rights. These emphasize well-being, such as the right to work, education, health, and cultural participation. Human rights are guided by key principles: universality, inalienability, indivisibility, and non-discrimination. While the idea has ancient roots, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, UDHR in 1948, marked a turning point, setting the modern standard for equality and justice. Western perspectives focus on individual liberty and universalism, while Eastern philosophies emphasize community, harmony, and moral responsibility. Both contribute to a diverse understanding of human rights. However, challenges persist: discrimination, economic inequality, conflict, and climate change still hinder progress. Addressing these issues requires global collaboration and respect for cultural diversity. Human rights are not just ideals, they are the foundation for a fair world. Let us commit to understanding, protecting, and promoting them for the benefit of all humanity. Ultimately, human rights are both a shared responsibility and an ongoing journey. By working together, guided by compassion, courage, and a commitment to equity, we can create a world where everyone has the opportunity to thrive, free from fear and oppression. Let us reaffirm our dedication to this vision and take meaningful steps toward making it a reality for generations to come. Human rights and sustainable development goals (SDGs) are closely linked, both aiming to promote dignity, equality, and well-being. Human rights ensure freedoms and protections for all, while the SDGs adopted by the UN strive to eliminate poverty, protect the planet, and foster prosperity by 2030. This connection is clear. SDG 5 and SDG 10 promote equality, reflecting the human rights to non-discrimination. SDG 4 ensures education for all, and SDG 3 protects the rights to health and well-being. Despite challenges like balancing growth with sustainability, human rights remain central to achieving the SDGs, ensuring no one is left behind as we build a just and equitable future. Human rights and ESG, environmental, social, and governance, are deeply interconnected, as both aim to promote ethical practices, sustainability, and the well-being of individuals and society. Human rights principles, such as equality, labor rights, and environmental protection, are reflected in the three pillars of ESG: environmental responsibility, social equity, and ethical governance. Addressing climate change, ensuring fair labor practices, and promoting diversity are not only ESG goals, but also fundamental to upholding human rights. Strong governance frameworks further ensure accountability and transparency, protecting against corruption and human rights abuses. By embedding human rights into ESG strategies, companies can build trust, reduce risks, and contribute to a more just, sustainable world. Respect for human rights is both a moral responsibility and a pathway to long-term success. By embedding human rights into ESG strategies, companies enhance their reputation and mitigate risks. Ultimately, Integrating human rights into ESG is both an ethical responsibility and a strategic advantage for fostering inclusive, sustainable growth. Rising from the ashes, the United Nations beginning. Our story begins in 1945, as World War II came to an end, leaving the world in ruins. Amid this devastation, humanity raised its voice. We must never phoenix. Thus, the United Nations, UN, was born. 3 years later, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, UDH, made its debut, a document hailed as the Magna Carta for all humanity. The Declaration is nothing short of remarkable. From freedom of expression to the right to life, from access to education to the right to a fair trial, its 30 articles paint a vision of a world built on freedom, equality, and dignity. Its creation is legendary too, led by Eleanor Roosevelt and enriched by the wisdom of diverse nations, making it one of the most widely translated documents in history. Leveling up. How the UN advances human rights. The UDHR is a beacon of hope, but turning that hope into reality requires action. The UN fortified its vision through 2 critical treaties: the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, ICCPR, and the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, ICESCR. The ICCPR guarantees freedoms like expression and protection from discrimination, while the ICESCR ensures access to food, education, and work. These treaties serve as the rules of the game, requiring signatory nations to comply or face the UN scrutiny. Beyond treaties, the UN established the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, OHCHR, which provides training and advice to countries. This ensures that human rights are not lofty ideals, but actionable standards. The UN's heroic moments. When we talk about the UN's fight for human rights, two standout stories come to mind. Ending apartheid in South Africa. For decades, the UN imposed economic sanctions and engaged in diplomatic negotiations to pressure South Africa. This long struggle culminated in a historic victory. By 1994, and Nelson Mandela became president, it remains. Apartheid was abolished. One of the UN's brightest triumphs, advancing gender equality through the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, CEDAW. The UN has encouraged nations to implement laws and policies that guarantee women's rights in education, employment, and healthcare. Today's progress in global gender equality owes much to these efforts. Here, after all, do universal human rights begin. After World War II, it was clear that the horrors of the war should never be allowed to occur again. Founded in 1945, the United Nations sought to prevent future atrocities by affirming in its foundational charter faith in fundamental human rights, the dignity and worth of the human person, and the commitment to promote better standards of life in larger freedom. In the years that followed, member states of the United Nations strive to develop the human rights provisions of the Charter and capture them in a single document. It took 3 years to agree on a common vision. On the 10th of December 1948, the General Assembly of the United Nations adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights as a common standard of achievement for all peoples and all nations. Still, it is the first step in a great evolutionary process. It is the first occasion on which the organized community of nations is mighty. Declaration of Human Rights and Fundamental Freedom that has the authority of the body of opinion of the United Nations as a whole, and millions of people, men and women and children all over the world, will turn for help and guidance and inspiration to this document. While history alone can determine the historic significance of an event, it is safe to say that the declaration before US may be destined to occupy an honorable place in the procession of positive landmark in human history. The declaration consists of a preamble and 30 articles, with Article 1 powerfully proclaiming that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. No discrimination, right to life, liberty and security, no slavery, no torture or cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment, or punishment equal protection of the law. No arbitrary arrest, detention, or exile fair and public hearing. No arbitrary interference with privacy. Right to freedom of movement, right to seek and enjoy asylum. Right to a nationality, right to marry and to found a family. Right to property, freedom of thought, conscience, and religion, freedom of opinion and expression, freedom of peaceful assembly, and right to take part in government. Right to work, right to rest and leisure. Right to food, clothing, housing, medical care and social services. Right to education, right to participate in cultural life. These human rights are not country. The non-governmental organizations, NGOs. These organizations play an essential role in promoting, protecting, and monitoring human rights across the globe through advocacy, legal action, and grassroots engagement. They stand as powerful allies in the fight for justice, equality, and dignity for all. First, Amnesty International, founded in 1961, it campaigns tirelessly against torture, the death penalty, and unlawful detention, using petitions, reports, and lobbying to pressure governments. Thanks to its work, countless political prisoners have been freed, and systemic reforms have been achieved. Second, Human Rights Watch HRW is known for its meticulous documentation of abuses, from war crimes to genocide. Its reports have influenced international courts and tribunals, setting legal precedents for accountability and justice. As we recognize their achievements, let us also remember our role in supporting these organizations, whether through advocacy, donations, or simply spreading awareness. Together, we can contribute to a world where human rights are not just ideals, but realities for everyone. Human rights are the fundamental freedoms and protections. Achieving universal human rights remains challenging due to cultural, political, and economic differences among countries. As we move into the future, global issues such as rising inequalities, technological advancements, and climate change are reshaping the landscape of human rights, strengthening accountability mechanisms within frameworks like the United Nations and integrating human rights into global initiatives, such as the Sustainable Development Goals SDGs and environmental, social, and governance ESG criteria can help address issues like inequality, environmental sustainability, and labor rights. By aligning these frameworks, we can ensure that human rights are part of broader global efforts for a more equitable and sustainable future. The future of international human rights depends on continuous dialogue, cooperation, and respect for cultural diversity. To effectively protect human rights on a global scale, we must build stronger international partnerships, respect national sovereignty, and develop more robust enforcement mechanisms. Only through these efforts can we create a world where dignity, freedom, and equality are safeguarded for everyone, ensuring that human rights evolve in a way that meets the challenges of the 21st century.